This episode of the Old Dogs REI Network is brought to you by Mino Studio. Mino Studio is a pre- and post-production facility for all of your audio needs. Mino Studio's founder is an accredited audio engineer with top 40 and indie album credits. With over 30 years of music industry experience, Mino Studio can take your podcast from idea to reality. Contact Mino Studio at minostudio777@gmail.com for more information. That's minostudio777@gmail.com.
In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manacero.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network. Today we have a special guest, Curt Bidwell, and he's got a great background and has been investing since 1990. Began with 3 partners in a fourplex in Tacoma, Washington, while serving as a full-time youth pastor. 3 years later, he traded into 3 duplexes, and shortly after that, 2 more. Those units were kept for about 10 years, which time his partner moved out of the area and his shares were bought out. In 2003, those 10 units were put up for sale. With the equity built up over the years, they were able to trade in for 17 new construction homes and townhouses. Within a couple of years, several of those properties were leveraged into a 42-unit mixed-use building on the county historic registry outside the state capital of Olympia, Washington. 2 years later, after a cash-out refi, a 24-unit apartment in Olympia was added to the portfolio. When Curt's remaining partner retired, he was able to arrange a buyout that gave the partner a comfortable monthly income while gaining his 32 units with no cash down. After 25 years of full-time pastoral service, Curt, who has 2 adult sons, continues to do consulting and speaking in local churches and enjoys opportunities to travel overseas to assist in various ministries. At home, he does tenant preparation workshops for the local community youth services, preparing at-risk youth to successfully enter the rental market. Sounds like you've had a really interesting career, Curt. Can you add a little bit more to that?
Well, there's lots more to add. Just depends on how far and how deep you want to go. There's, every unit seems to have its own story, and so. Yeah, I started in 1990. 3 of us were all really close, good friends. In fact, as a youth pastor, both of these guys had kids in my youth group, and so we got to know each other real well, had lunch together regularly. And the one was a realtor. The other fellow was in the service and in Fort Lewis when I met him. And then they invited me to join them in the purchase of that fourplex. And so that's kind of how we got things rolling.
Were you thinking about real estate when they asked you, or is this just kind of off the cuff?
It was not on my radar per se. I mean, I grew up where we always owned our home, and so I always assumed I would own my own home. But investing in real estate was not really on my radar at that point, but very quickly learned that that was a good way to go. And, as a young guy with a wife and soon to be family, didn't have a lot in the way of either income or retirement and that kind of thing. So real estate began to be a very viable option for us, realizing that there was something that we could do without a whole lot of time consumption. Ministry took a lot of that, and so especially within the partnership, we were able to share responsibilities, and things rolled along pretty well that way.
How active were you with the actual properties that you purchased?
Well, in the beginning, there wasn't a whole lot to do. Like I said, we shared responsibilities. A couple of us would go out and take care of maintenance issues, showing, and then one of them handling the finances. The realtor pretty much handled financing and finding deals and stuff. And so, on an hourly basis, I said we didn't spend a lot of time in the first couple of years other than when we had a turnover. So it was more of kind of a weekend, occasional evening kind of situation.
And who would handle tenant applicants and so forth?
Well, that depends on who you ask and who remembers what. As time went on and we've turned that initial fourplex into 3 duplexes, they were all in one parcel, so it was a sixplex, was a commercial contract, but I began to take over more management, and that was the generosity of the guys saying, "Hey, Curt needs a little more income right now. Let's pay him a little bit to oversee it." So I ended up doing most of the general management responsibilities, and then I also shared in some of the maintenance.
Did they include that in your actual financials or property management?
There was never anything very formal. It was kind of handshake agreements, and so that's just kind of how we worked in those days.
Now, as you started to move into some of the larger unit, 42 unit, 24 unit, and so forth, did you still self-manage, or did you contract outside property management?
On the 2 larger units, we did have management. The 42 unit has 38 apartments, and then some commercial spaces. We've got a restaurant space, and right now I have a nail salon, a hair salon, and attorney's office. And so we, just because of the design of the building and everything else, it needs a on-site attention, and so we do have a manager that lives there, takes care of things. In the early days when we got the 24 unit, we also had outside management that oversaw that. When I resigned my position from the church, didn't have other income, and so we let her go, also because out of 24 units, I had 5 empty.
Wow.
Not a good ratio. We weren't getting the quality tenants. We were getting leftovers, and so it didn't take very long. We were able to bump that right back up to 100% occupancy, and we seldom have any more than a 2 to 3% vacancy in that unit. So little attention and hands-on pretty well took care of that. So the last 4 years I have managed the 24 unit and the single-family homes, and then I still have a manager out in Shelton, which is about 20, 30 minutes from us.
Now, making the move into mixed use, going from primarily multifamily, single family to commercial, was that a hard change for you, or a hard transition?
Well, it was a little frightening. I'm still more comfortable with residential than I am commercial, but there's advantages to both sides of that. The disadvantage is my restaurant has been empty for almost 4 years. So if anybody would love to open a little restaurant out in Shelton, Washington, we're open to talk.
We'll put the link on the site. Okay.
There you go. The smaller commercial, we tend to keep occupied without much problem. Residential, even in Shelton, these are all studio and 1-bedroom units, and I have maybe a 2% vacancy out there year over year, so we do really well with that.
God, that's great. Now, do you live in Olympia yourself?
Yes, I live in Olympia.
Okay, so you're fairly close to all the properties, right, for the most part?
Most all the properties, yes. I have a couple pieces up in Puyallup, which is about 45 minutes from me, just outside of Tacoma. And then I have what I call my stray child out in Sebring, Florida.
Oh, gee. Now, how did you get that in the mix there?
Oh, my. Well, as you read through the bio, you saw one of the partners moved out of the area. now you know where he moved.
And he just couldn't stand not having you as one of his partners, right?
Well, we didn't partner with him there, but this was a development that was expanding. It's an adult-only community, not necessarily retired, though that's pretty much the makeup of the people out there. But he was buying a couple different homes there, and one with a partner, one on his own. And then he said, come look at these. And so we did, and we got excited. This is in like 2005, 2006. The market is just going crazy all across the country. And we got in the spirit of things, and we bought one home there, and with grand expectations of great increases in values and great cash flow. And what ended up happening, the cash flow of $1,250 that we were told we would get ended up being about $900,
Wow.
actually $750 for a while. And our $189,000 investment is worth about $145 today. If you're talking winners and losers, that goes in the left column.
Wow.
So.
With the recession, I mean, you moved right into it, obviously. And did you get hit in any of the other properties that severe, or were you able to pretty well weather it?
We weathered everything else really well. In fact, my brother, he would chide me and say, "Hey, I bet you're really hurting now." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, because the market's so far down, you don't have any value in there." I said, "But I'm not selling anything right now."
Yeah, I too much cash flow coming in. Why would I want to sell, right?
Well, we did cut back on some of our units in order to keep them occupied. And we saw, of course, a lot of strange things taking place. A lot of unintentional landlords were created during that time. People that wanted to sell but couldn't, had to move. And so rather than lose the home, they put a tenant in there, but they didn't know how to take care of a tenant. They didn't know how to take care of a property. And in some cases, they were losing them. And so we would have tenants come look at our property and say, are you the owner and are you in foreclosure? And I said,
Wow.
We've been in this thing for over 20 years. We're not going anywhere.
Great.
And so, we were able to weather it without significant losses there. It was just the values in some of them.
With the decline in values, were you able to pick up properties during that time when things really went down?
Oh, I really wish I could say we did. I didn't have the financing in order, and of course they started doing crazy things with financing and really cutting investors out of the market unless you had cash or hard money or something else to work with, and I just wasn't willing to go that route and risk it at that level. So no, I didn't pick up anything, but we put our emphasis on paying things down during that time and got rid of all of our seconds because we were extremely highly leveraged. And so we put ourselves in a much stronger position coming out of it.
Great. That's smart. With real estate, all of us, I think at a certain point, for myself, I was looking for something as I was moving into retirement years and having been full-time ministry myself. There's a certain time period where I had this light bulb moment where, wow, real estate really does make sense. And I wonder if you could recall sort of at what point you said, you obviously formed a separate company that handles your investments and so forth. Was there a certain point where you just said, this is really the way to go?
I don't think there was a light bulb moment. I think it was more gradual for us. Because we grew through the 4-plex into the 6-plex, and then we added 4 more, and we hung on to those for years. And at that point, my only concept of real estate was you buy it, eventually these tenants pay it off, and you own it, and someday you'll make some money. And so what really happened for me, we had moved about 40 minutes south to Olympia. I'd lived up in Tacoma prior to that. And being in ministry, I was not in Social Security, and so I was thinking, well, what am I going to retire on? And really my thought was, if I had 4 more units, 2 more duplexes of our own outside of the partnership, I'd have enough cash flow to survive with what we had in the partnership and 4 more units. And so I started looking for that. And in the process of that, I met a spectacular realtor who understood from an investment standpoint real estate. She owned investment property. She was a marketer. She had extensive experience in marketing, both in fine arts and in the airline industry, and now in real estate. Her husband was a builder, so she understood it from the construction standpoint. So she brought all these things to the table. And it was that point when we transitioned out of our older, little 2-bedroom, 1-bath duplexes, and we began to purchase brand new construction units with a higher clientele of people and that actually had jobs. And we all of a sudden already had cash flow. And that was, I guess, if you want to call it a light bulb, to realize that real estate could make money today, not just someday off in the future.
Well, it sounds like there was a little light bulb there, in realizing that this really could take care of your retirement years for you.
Yes,
which is great. Now, do you have any of those smaller properties? Have they all been sold, traded out?
Well, the expectation was we would have sold them all within about 3 to 5 years, but the market had different ideas for us, and so I still do have. I have 2 duplexes, one small, one large, and I have a couple of other smaller homes, and then over the years we added a few other pieces. So I have 10 homes and duplexes plus the larger pieces now.
Right. And are you pretty much in the buy and hold mode, that you're going to hold on to everything you have at this point, or are you looking to grow?
Well, I bought my partner out 1.5 years ago. He wanted to retire, and he's enjoying traveling to Alaska to visit his kids and grandkids, and California to visit family, and runs over to Hawaii. And, he's loving life at this stage. And so it worked out well for both of us, for him to be able to go do his thing, and for me. And I told him at that point, I says, I'm not done. He had 15 years on me, so I've got, 10, 15 years worth of growing. So actually this last fall in December, I closed on a 10-unit property, and that's a very fun story. It's an old 1942 building and war-era stuff. And
fun.
We are doing major renovation, but we're able to do it very cost effectively, and so we'll end up with about $50,000 in it, redoing the electrical, redoing plumbing. We just ordered our new windows. These have original 1942 windows still in it.
Wow. Now, other local historical buildings, like I've got one in Indianapolis, and I can't really do anything significant to the building without checking first with a historical board and so forth. Do you have those same restrictions in Washington?
Well, not on this property. My other one, downtown Shelton, yes. That is what we lovingly call the Hysterical Society.
I love it.
And if we do anything to the exterior, we have to go through the Hysterical review. And so that it hasn't been really difficult. It just takes time, because they only meet when they choose to meet. I mean, they're scheduled every month, but somebody might be on a trip or have a cold or whatever else. And so sometimes it can take a couple months to get something processed. But we've been able to do what we've needed to. Interior-wise, we can do pretty much anything we want. But on the exterior, we have to go through them.
Right. What would you say was your biggest mistake in real estate investing that hopefully you learned from?
Well, that takes me back to Florida. We bought that property. I'd have to say I had experienced landlording, and I thought I was doing pretty good with that end of things. But as far as investing, I still had a lot to learn. And even though I had already been doing it for, 12, 15 years, I did not know investing. And I got caught up in the hype of the market increase. I took the realtor's word, and he was well-intentioned, don't get me wrong, but I just took it at face value. I assumed that the property was worth what they asked for it. I assumed I was going to get the rent that I was told, and that everything would be peachy keen. And in reality, the property really was not worth what I paid for it. And obviously the rent income was significantly less than I was promised. And so I didn't do my own due diligence. I just accepted the words of other people, and, they were excited to sell it to me, and away they went, and, I'm kind of stuck with it. Fortunately, I have enough other pieces to help offset it, but, do your own due diligence, preparation, very necessary.
Yeah, that's a good lesson. How about your biggest success? What would you say in the various properties that you purchased was just a real, out of the park experience?
Well, I think the one that I'm working on right now, the 10 unit that we just purchased in December, I had about a 18-month plan, and within that, I expected to see $5,600 rental income, and I had a plan to get it to about $8,200, $8,300 over 18 months. And actually, as of June, I will be just over $8,000, and so that's just 7 months into it. So we're ahead of schedule on that. The value, we got a great deal. I actually found this deal on Zillow. It had been sitting out there for months and months and months, and it was old. It was doggy. It was very poorly taken care of from a physical standpoint as well as from a management standpoint. Things had just been ignored. Tenants' requests were routinely ignored. Running water, hazards, electrical hazards. There was 2 stoves in there that the tenants told us they pulled the elements out because they sparked.
Oh, gee. Oh, God. Wow. So did you have to put a significant amount into the rehab on that?
I think right now we're still working on it. I think we'll be into it for about $50,000, give or take a little bit, and that will include all new electrical panels. It'll include all new water supply lines, PEX piping. It includes each unit being renovated, painted, new flooring, new counters, both in the kitchen and bath. And we're right now working on getting the windows all replaced. There's 59 windows to replace.
Wow.
And then repainting it. Once we're done with that, we will see almost 50% value increase.
Unbelievable. That's fantastic. It's hard with some of those buildings with those windows too, because you can't get those retro fit windows you can buy in a lot of cases because the sizes were odd. Were you able to find and be able to fit windows fairly easily?
Yeah, with the new vinyl windows, they pretty much make them to fit. And so, our guys, I've actually had them out there 4 different times measuring to confirm and reconfirm and then get the order put in. And so, yeah, they make them to fit. They'll go in well.
It sounds like you're on the way on that one. Gee, that's great. A lot of our listeners are retired. Many of them are approaching retirement. They're kind of concerned about just the challenges ahead and whether or not financially they're going to be able to make it. And I want to just get maybe your advice, even though you didn't start when you were retired, but what would you advise to those folks that are interested in getting into real estate investing, but obviously very cautious with the funds they have and in many cases limited in the funds they have?
Mm-hmm. I think finding a like-minded partner is a good option. I kind of think of that little quote, shared sorrow is divided while shared joy is multiplied.
That's great.
And you'll experience both of those with real estate. But both of my boys actually purchased rental homes when they were still in high school.
That's awesome. That's so great.
I partnered with them to make sure that their deal succeeded and they didn't go under when they weren't prepared to handle it. Uh-huh. And I would say the same thing. Find somebody that you can partner with, and maybe they got more resources, or maybe they have experience, or maybe they're the same point with you, but you can go in that and share the risk, but share the upside too. And I know in my partnership of 25 years, I would not have done many of the things we did without the help and the input, the camaraderie of the partners. We sharpened each other. We held each other accountable. We picked up the slack where one was weaker, and it made us much more confident in what we were doing moving forward. And that gave us the experience and the wins under our belt that we could move forward either together or independently and still be successful.
Great advice. How about your current business now? Looking at where you're at, do you have a goal in mind that I'm going to reach X number of units or this amount in revenue before you say, boom, this is where I want to be?
I keep asking myself that, and I don't know that there's an answer. My goals and expectations, ambitions just seem to keep changing. There's so many different aspects of real estate available, and I'm putting my feet in on another project. I purchased a home about 12 years ago. It's in the city. It's got 2.5 acres, and it slopes nicely up, so the upper part of the lot has views, and we're working right now to short plat that, and we'll get 3 additional large, beautiful lots on it that will be view lots. And so that is going to bring a whole different flavor to what I've done. I'm not anticipating becoming a developer by any means. That scares me to death. The risks of that are pretty high. But what excites me, I guess, is seeing the years of work coming to fruition through that particular project, through this 10-unit, through some of the others that we're working on. And so I guess I'm envisioning a more passive approach in the days ahead.
Do you have the team in place, you feel, that you could really pull that off in terms of development?
For development, probably not completely. I mean, I know enough people I could probably do it, but my expectation is to turn that money faster than doing all that. I'm going to get it platted, and I'm going to sell them off and take that money and roll it, because it will be fairly significant at that point already, and I won't have to bear the risk of actually constructing the property and doing all the infrastructure and that kind of thing. So for me, I think I'm going to be happy to roll out of them.
Uh-huh. Are there other areas of real estate that you kind of looked at? Some folks have, gone through flipping. Some are in deeds or liens. Any other areas that you're contemplating? I'm
doing a little bit of research in the area of notes,
uh-huh.
and that's certainly more passive. But I'm not quite there yet. That's not my level of experience so far, and so I really envision, I guess, in my mind, both from a practical standpoint and a legacy standpoint, of getting a piece of property, maybe it's 150, 200 units, 250 units, that I can have full-time management, full-time maintenance, pretty much taking care of stuff, kind of like my Shelton property. I go out there a couple times a month and oversee things and then go my way. It's best if I'm there, but it's not necessary.
Right.
And so that would free me up to do some other things that my wife and I love to do, and places we'd like to go.
That's great. Are you looking to make that move, much more passive role, and have in mind certain things that you really want to do that it'll take more time to do?
Depending on how things happen, it could happen in the next year, maybe the next 3 years. So I think it's very possible for things to happen relatively quickly.
That's great. I really love what you're doing with that tenant preparation workshops. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you ended up doing that?
Well, I rent 2 spaces to community youth services, and they put kids at risk in there. They screen them, and then I screen them, and that's always interesting, because I come back and I say, well, did you know this and that about this person? And they say, well, how did you find that? We didn't show up on ours. Well, I got a better screener.
That's good.
So I do have the right of refusal, but my contract is directly with them. And then when they bring students to us, or young people, they're not all students, I have some paperwork that they have to go through and agree and sign off on. And it's been a pretty good relationship. And so through that, establishing that relationship, got to know some of the caseworkers, and they asked if I would do a workshop for the kids that they were preparing to move into homes. And I jumped on it, knowing that I could prepare potentially tenants moving into my own place, and I could have a stronger say in what they are going to be and how they're going to function. And a big part of my goal is just saying, hey, how you treat your rental today, how you approach it, will determine whether or not you get the rental of your dreams, or potentially the purchase of your own home.
Right.
And so let's make the right decisions today and prepare ourselves, knowing what the potential outcomes are, both plus and minus, of how you treat your unit, how you treat your landlord.
That's really neat. What a neat program. That's great. Well, we're at our wrap it up section here, and This is where I ask you a series of quick questions that you respond to, and will provide some good information for our listeners. Are you ready?
I guess so.
Okay. All right. Favorite real estate book?
Whichever one I'm currently reading.
Hey, I don't know about that answer.
If I look across the shelf, I'd probably say Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Keller.
Sure.
But there's a whole long list of them that I said, oh, this is the best one. And then I pick up a new one and go, oh, this is the best one. And so, but that one's certainly impactful and with some great information.
How about favorite business book?
Again, it's kind of whatever I'm reading, but there have been a few of them that I've read over the last year or two. I say The Go-Giver, Giver, by Bob Berg and John Mann. Not so much instructive as it is philosophical mindset. How do you approach people and how do you approach business? And is it a give me, taking mentality, or is it how can I meet others' needs and give something of value? And I think that approach and that mindset really helps move things forward and for a win-win situation.
Most valuable website for your real estate work?
Well, I think Bigger Pockets is probably the one that has impacted me the most and that I turn to the most for a variety of things. Information, sharing ideas, refining my own thinking as I respond to others. There's deal analysis software in there, and just a plethora of information. So I think that's probably the most valuable one that I'm using.
How about favorite app?
That's a tough one. You have to ask my kids who are involved in that techie world. But I think one that I do utilize is JotNot Pro, JOTNOT. I can take a picture of, using my iPhone. I take a picture and turn it into a PDF to email it on the spot. Might be a deposit check or a pay stub that they bring, or they might fill out an application and I can take a quick picture of it, send it off to the processor. That's been a pretty good one.
Great. And finally, if something horrible happened here, let's say, and you just basically everything was wiped out and you had to start all over again, knowing what you know, but all you've got is $1,000. What would you do to launch your real estate investing business?
I would probably be looking for an owner contract, probably negotiate a zero down scenario where I could add some value and maybe perhaps do an equity share to create a bit of capital to move ahead.
Great. Did a zero down deal, didn't you, on one of your properties?
I've done several. The one that's I think the most exciting is, again, go back to this 10-plex where I had found the property. I ran my own numbers on it. And then about a week later, my realtor called and said, hey, have you seen this? And I said, yeah, let me show you the numbers. And she says, you want to put an offer on it? I says, yes. And so we'd established a banking relationship, and this is, I think, key, a local small business bank. And they had already given me a line of credit and just on a signature loan based on our history and our portfolio. And then this deal came up probably a month later. And so I called the guy back and I said, hey, here's this deal. Here's the numbers. This is where it is. This is where it's going. Will you do 80% loan to value? And he said, yeah, I'll do that. So I took their 80% loan to value. I drew the other 20% out of the line of credit he'd given me 3 or 4 weeks before. So I was 100% financed out of that deal. And that bank's on the line for 100% of it.
Wow. Great deal. Oh, excellent. Well, this has been a great time together. Thank you so much, Curt. What's the best way to reach you?
A couple of ways, I guess. I'm on Bigger Pockets a pretty fair amount, and so they can find me there. My website is Philia HC, which stands for PhiliaHoldingCompany.com. P is in Paul, HILIAHC.com, and there's a contact page there as well.
Great. Well, as you know, this show is called the Old Dogs REI Network, and we ask all of our guests at the end of their interview to give us their best old hound dog howl. Okay. Now, you're from Washington. There's got to be a bunch of hound dogs up there, right?
Oh, you get out to Shelton, we got a lot of rednecks folks out that way with their dogs strapped to the front yard.
So you should be able to do a real good one here. So okay, Curt, just let her go.
Arr, 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 arr.
All right, great.
What we got?
Oh, excellent. Well, Curt, thank you so much for taking this time to be with us and to share with our listeners. I'm sure they're going to really appreciate the value of the content that you expressed today. So we thank you and wish you the best in all your endeavors. Hopefully we can touch base later on down the road and you can update us on all that you're doing.
Sounds great. Would love to do it.
Well, thanks so much, Curt. And you have a great day.
Thank you.